All right. I'd like to start off by saying that I'm super proud of what we've accomplished in this week. We were able to secure a week one clear in 4 days on pretty much no PTO hours. We went about 6 hours a day, other than Thursday, which I think we went for 8 hours. Um, but yeah, our prep for this tier was actually super indicative of uh, how it actually went. So, for context, what we did for prep was we would set a goal for ourselves for a single raid session, such as clearing an entire tier. Uh, so, for example, one of the sessions we had was to clear Eden's Gate, the entire tier, E1 to 4, in I think 3 hours. Um, and what we found was it took us 3 hours to get through the first three fights. And then we would do the same thing in Eden's Verse, where we tried to clear the tier in a set amount of time. This time we spent 6 hours to get through uh, 5 to 7. And then we did it again the next raid session where we tried to get through Eden's Promise. And we went from 9 to 11 in about 5 hours. Maybe I'm misremembering, but it was 5 to 6 hours for both Eden's Verse and Eden's Promise for the first three fights, at least. Um, and what we found was this tier, we were able to get the clears from 1 to 3, M1 to 3, in just under 6 hours. So I'm super happy that our prep worked out. We were able to iron out all our comms, and we were able to um, kind of learn how we work together enough that we were able to put it to practice for this tier. Um, so in the first fight, because we started later, we already had strats going in. I think we started about 12 hours later than the tier released. So easily we had strats for Black Cat, and we were able to clear in 12 pulls. Uh, for the most part, I was not expecting such a fast clear. I think we could have cleared faster if I was more comfortable on the job, and if we sort of were able to orient ourselves better with whatever I don't even remember what some of these mechanics are because it went by so fast. But pretty much around the halfway point, yeah, this part with the mechanic with two cats. Uh, we were just trying to get ourselves oriented with how these mechanics work, and once we found out how it worked, once we got ourselves locked down to the true north ways, we pretty much just cleared. We spent no extra time progging, and we just went from zero or from half to, well, that's not half, but almost half the fight to just a clear. Um, there isn't really much to say about it, but our normal mode prep actually was very helpful or at least it helped me learn this fight a lot faster because what we did was we would just do the normal mode and we just play in our clock spots for the entire fight, moving the boss as much as possible, doing either relative clock spots or true north clock spots, and it definitely worked wonders. I think in progging through this fight in particular. I was a little disappointed that too many of these normal mode mechs were kind of like spread out through the tier. I thought at least fights 1 to 3 were kind of boring in that respect. Um, as especially when we got to 2 and we found the stupid uh what was it called? Alarm pheromones that they pretty much just reused the normal mode mech, except instead of the lines going out on the 6th line, it came out on the 4th line, I think. So it definitely threw my timing off a bit. But all we did really was just the Mario Kart strat. It, it, it's simple, nothing too complicated. Uh, but I think the only thing I wish I could have seen in Honeybee Lovely um, was sort of a simpler version of Light Rampant. I wish we actually got that in the second fight. I know it was definitely unrealistic because it's the first tier and it's the second fight, but they could have done more than just make it a slightly harder normal mode fight. Although I do like that she heals every time you get full hearts, which makes the DPS check harder. That one was definitely a mechanic I enjoyed seeing. Uh, it definitely added to the DPS check that wasn't really there, uh, especially when you weren't very clean uh, throughout the heart phases. Um, but for this fight, for the second fight, I played Red Mage for Prague pretty much the entire way. We hit Enrage a couple times, uh, partially because we weren't very clean yet. I think for this pull, we had around 5 stacks on her, so she healed 5 times. I think it's around the same for this, maybe 6 times, I think, for the second one. But all we did to fix that issue was that I switched to Picto and we cleared. Not even a problem. I think I forget to paint here, and we just wipe. Something like that. I don't know. Definitely got in further than just the opener though. But yeah, I, all I had to do was switch to Picto and clear, and that was pretty much something that I had to keep in mind for later. Especially since I wasn't very comfortable on Picto, and I wasn't sure how good the Black Mage buffs were yet. Um, but I still think Picto is a lot better. Uh, but yeah, once we cleared these first two fights, uh, we went into three, and honestly, for the first hour that we prog this, I didn't take it that seriously. Uh, I I thought we were just going in for some fun runs, not even like prog. But we ended up making good progress. We got to about half the fight in our first lockout of the day. We only had an hour left on the first day, so that's part of why I didn't take it too seriously. Um, but yeah, once we got in the next day, we had a ninth, and we went from 50% to 1%. And it was at this point where I just switched to Picto, and in a few pulls, we just kind of clear. So, well, actually, no, I switched to Picto here and just one pulled it. I thought we could clear it with Red Mage, but Picto's just Picto just made any mistake irrelevant, and we just clear. This fight again, I think, was actually something that I had trouble with orientation. I think mostly because of one of the bomb phases, not this one, the one before this. Yeah, here I die here. So what was happening was I was just trying to spread away from our melees, and I had trouble trying to find where I should be standing. Oh, it's not this pattern because we were first. It's for when DPS is second fuse, so long fuse. So we'd be in the middle, and then we spread to our spot. Um, what we'd agreed on was we or I would be going right, facing in if the boss is pulled this way. So I'd be here and I'd be facing this way to the right, like facing to the middle of the arena, and then I'd go out, and that's my spread spot. Uh, it was kind of messing with me because I'd be like facing away from the boss. But yeah, I certainly fixed that problem. I really didn't play well this year in terms of consistency. I Part of it was that I was playing jobs I wasn't 100% comfortable on, and part of it was just because I was just bad. I, there's nothing, no other excuses. I was just bad. Um, but I hopefully it didn't really hinder our progress. Uh, I say that and we cleared really fast, but still, regardless, we move on from M3 and we go into M4, and I think we spent a few hours on this on the third day. No, on the second day. So we spent the remainder of our time progging through M4 trying to get Witch Hunt down, I think. And I think the strat we actually used for Witch Hunt was a really good prog strat. In that if we if one of us makes a mistake, so here, one of us makes a mistake, I just res them and we keep going. In other strats, I've seen the parties together and the baiters are moving out of the party. The problem is if someone in that party uh, makes a wrong step, they all die, unfortunately. Well, they will. So you can't really prog at that point. So I'm happy that we were able to stick to this, learn it. Um, I think this also did help us learn individually uh, how to do the mechanic, even though we had like some slight mishaps like clipping for melee uptime and stuff like that. Uh, in the long run, it proved more beneficial because we were all able to learn proper positioning and callouts. Like in our scenario, in our case, we had callouts where we'd say, "Oh, for this pattern, we're always on the marker," or "For this pattern, we're always off the marker." Which means if it's your turn, you are either off the marker or on the marker. So it just made more sense than calling like, "Oh, this pattern is in and out," or the baiters are out, or or we're all the parties out and the baiters out. It just it's a good call out, I think, still, but just thinking about your movement on the marker made a lot more sense, I think. Um, but yeah, after that first day, and we got into, or we were able to study more for the third day, we went from 50% to straight to 20%. This 20% pull was basically uh, a sunrise Sabbath pull. We were, if we were that clean with that last mech, um, we could have cleared on that sixth pull. We could have cleared on our first pull there, which is honestly pretty insane. And then 10 pulls later, 12 pulls later, uh, we got there again, 15%. And all we were doing at this point was um, just trying to clean everything up. At this point, I switched to Picto so that we could meet the DPS check a lot easier. Uh, Problem was I wasn't comfortable on Picto, and I was doing callouts for um, or I was doing callouts for this mechanic using this macro, which would uh, store like 1, 2, 3, 4 in say chat, which doesn't reach the other platform. Problem was it's a 2-minute burst, and I'd have to weave in both my rotation and chat macros. It wasn't a very good combination for me with my comfort level. Once I switched to Black Mage, it was not an issue. Offloaded the chat macro duties over to Hideki, and we didn't have problems again on this platform. So that was good to see. Um, but we still had some problems ironing out consistency on the way there. So I think at around Twilight Sabbath, I'm not sure if this is, yeah, it's after this. At this point, we were trying to still iron out consistency. Uh, there was a point where I was facing my camera in towards the boss in this mechanic, and it was really hard to see where I'd had to stand and uh what mechanic was actually going on, whether there was a gun or a wing. So when I made the call to actually turn and face the ads, it made it a lot easier to position. Hopefully, that helps in identifying where you can stand, where you can stack, um, where your positioning needs might be. But yeah, once I learned how to get this down, it was very helpful. Problem is, you have to turn around a lot faster, so you can see the tell for the safe spot. So whether it's in or out. In this case, it was middle, and I got lucky. Uh, and there's a lot of time anyway, but it's something to keep note of. Uh, but yeah, once we iron that out, three pulls pretty much in a row. 8%, 8% or 3%, 3%. Um, and any of these could have been clear if it was just like slightly cleaner. We could have cleared on that third day. But I think we did a few more pulls after that, got to another 6%. We just kind of called it for a day, um, or called it a day, and decided to move on to tomorrow or the next day because it was getting late and we were 100% getting the clear at this point. What I'm happy with was this entire time we were progging, um, none of us were frustrated at all. We were all just hyped every single time we got prog. We were all really trying to prop each other up. Um, there were a few moments where, yeah, it got uh, a little into the tilt territory, but we were able to pull it back like immediately, pull it back into the next pull, and we were good to go. And I think this last fight is very indicative of what we'll get as a team during the LT. Um, it's another one of those endurance checks. It's a 13-minute long fight, and LT is going to be around 20 minutes. So if we can get it together like this for the ulti, I think we're going to be very successful in maybe a 1 month clear. Um, but yeah, we came in the next day and we got really close. We got really good pulls, three pulls in a row well, almost three pulls in a row, where we hit enrage, another enrage, and then we just clear. Um, at this point, I was on Black Mage and I was very, very, very comfortable uh, making calls for what we need. I actually that's another thing I should mention. Um, we didn't have a singular shot caller. We had a lot of different people calling for a lot of different mechs, and what that did was whenever two to three people called something for that mech, it was sort of, oh, uh, we make this call, we make this call, and we make this call. Are they all the same? Yes, we're correct. If we had one person make a different call than the next person, the third person would chime in. Oh, it's actually this, and we'd be able to confirm which is the correct call. I thought that kind of dynamic was actually really cool compared to offloading all the calls onto one person, where we kind of just ride or die with that call. But uh, not that there's anything wrong with that. I do enjoy having that one person calling. As we've done that in the past, but the group dynamic we have now is I think very beneficial to the atmosphere that we're kind of trying to uphold. Everyone's involved in the fight at all times, not just listening to the one person making the calls. Um, so I'm very appreciative of everyone who's able to chime in on on all these callouts. Uh, but yeah, we were we were able to clear in 4 days. And then, not to mention, we were able to clear on our alts in 5 hours on the Monday. Only took us 5 hours. This was pretty much just to practice or uh, re-clear day and just um, relearn M1 and M2, especially. Uh, what caught me off guard actually was having to relearn M3 because I didn't remember much of that fight. Um, I think M3 took us, yeah, M3 took us just as long as M4. We pretty much cleared M1 and M2 almost immediately, and then M3 reprog, and then yeah, we just re-clear on alts. Today's gonna be really smooth. I expect nothing out of the ordinary. Uh, yeah, I enjoy raiding with this group. Tiers really easy. Um, Last fight's really good. Nothing more to say. Thank you for watching.